Hi everyone and welcome to the first video on this channel. Today we are talking about something I needed for the website of Static Cursor itself. As you can see on the homepage, we show recent 4 episodes and we also have a dedicated page with all episodes ever made and of course detail of episode itself. On the detail you can see the stuff like thumbnail, when the post was published, the title, the content itself. Everything is powered by Markdown files. I chose Next.js as a framework and I look up the documentation and tutorials how I can use Markdown files in Next.js project. I found out the learn section of Render Markdown and I figured out this is perfect. This is what I want to use. There is just a simple one get post data method that would solve all my problems. And I would then use it in get static props and then I would just get the data, right? But I did not. The thing is that it wasn't type safe. But let's start with this solution and let's improve it on the way. Before we get started, let's quickly go over where we are at. So we've got Next.js installed. On the homepage, there is a basic list of all posts with links to their detailed pages. As you can see from lines 3 to 7, these posts are stored in a simple array with each post being represented by an object. On the episode detail page, we are following the standard procedure within the framework's getStaticPath and getStaticProps functions. In both, we'll be using our posts object. The goal is to eliminate the post object and dynamically generate these values from Markdown files. Perfect. We are starting with creating a new file in authors folder called get posts data. Let's paste the source code from the Next.js learn section. As you can see, we have the map function and the whole function might be a little bit harder to read. So let's extract the mapping of each item in separate function first. Let's call it get post data. Function will have just one parameter and that would be file name. This should be type of string. Let's change also one more thing here and that's the const ID. This value represents more the slug of the blog post than the ID. So let's change it. And now we can use the get post data function in a mapper function. That should do the trick. Let's clean this up and remove the sorting. We don't need it for the purpose of this video. Let's stop here for a little bit and let's talk about what those two actions actually do. Let's start with get post data. This function is setting up first the slug that is extracted from the file name. If you are like me and you like having numbers before the file names of Markdown files, you can remove the numbers here as well from the file name. But as you can see, we are removing, in this case, just the .md, the extension of the file. Slug will be used for the matching, for the exact string that we will be getting from the URL. As you can see on next line, we are preparing full path, where the Markdown file is located, and then we are reading the content of that Markdown file itself. Important line here is line 20. That's when we are parsing the content of Markdown file into two things. First one is content that is containing the content, but still in Markdown. And the second one is object data that is containing all metadata that we have above the content in Markdown file. And exactly the data object we are spreading into object that we are returning from the get post data function along with the slug. Let's check the function above, the get sorted post data function. It's first reading all the file names that we are getting, but by listing all the posts in a directory. And when we have those file names, we are just mapping them for the function that we made below with the function get post data. With that, we will get the array as a return of this function with all objects of all posts that we have. Before we move on, let's just rename the function to match the second name of the function. Just look better. Let's use our function in index page. Let's first start with importing the get post data, our function, and then let's prepare the get static props function. And right now we can just call our function and return the post object as part of object with props as a key. And then we need to import infer get static props type, the helper type that will get us type props for the home component. And as you can see right now, we can select the posts, it's automatically typed, and we are missing title on the post object. Why is that? Because we don't have type markdown yet. So let's get back to get post data. Here we will be importing two new libraries. First is Zod, the second one is zod-matter. We need to install both packages because we haven't installed them yet. So let's get to terminal, run npm install zod and zod-matter, get back to editor, to the file, and from Zod we will be using the z, and from zod-matter we will be using parse function. So we need to replace the matter result with the result of parse function. Parse will return us an object with two things in it. First is data, and the second is content. So let's use the parse function. The first parameter is the file content. So we have it already in file contents. And the second one is zod schema. We will use empty schema for now. And let's console log both. Let's see what's inside. And that we can do when we go to terminal and run npm run dev. That will start the Next.js server. If we refresh the browser, we see posts but with no data. But when we go to the terminal, we can see empty object. Why? Because we didn't specify the schema, the validation schema for our posts. So we have title and a date. So let's specify those two fields into the validation schema. So let's add title, type of string, and the same thing for the field date, z.string and datetime. When we jump back to terminal, we see that the object is no longer empty. We have a title and a date.
And below that, we see the content of the markdown itself that we can then parse on a client.
When we go back to get post data and we return the data that we spread and the content and the slug, we can right now see in the home page that both title and the slug are typed. When we add something new like date that we have there as well, you can see we have it fully typed. And when we switch to browser, you can see we have it working. It's perfect. We have a title and we have even the datetime. The same thing we can do for the detail of a blog post. Here it will be pretty straightforward. We need to replace the posts object with our dynamic posts. So let's import get posts data and let's get those posts in get static path method. Everything else with the mapping stays the same. So let's get rid of the post object and in the get static props, copy paste get post data and everything should be working. So when we create a new post, the fourth one with a title and date and the content, we should be seeing this post in the archive of all posts in the browser. When we click on any post, we will get the detail with a title, slug, and a content. And the funny thing here is that when we open the markdown file and we remove any field like title, we get back to the browser and we refresh the page, we will get the error. error that is saying that there is invalid type, that on the path title, the Zod was expecting string, but it got undefined. But when we get back to the Markdown file and we write up the title, we go back to the browser, we refresh, we should be just fine.